So today we're going to dive into some dysfunctional family rules. And some of this may be unconscious, maybe in your relationship or how you're parenting your children, but dysfunctional family rules, things that maybe won't serve you at long term if you do it. So in our house growing up, perception was everything, and we were going to control the perception, right? Have you ever met someone who tends to be a people pleaser? Right? They want to do everything that everybody else wants because they want to be liked. That was how I started to grow up into my adult life because I didn't want to rock the boat. I remember being in a hotel room and we were at Disneyland and we were talking about one of the kids' birthdays. And one of my parents was like, "Oh, well, you invited so-and-so, right?" I was like, "No, I didn't invite so-and-so." They're like, "You have to invite so-and-so." It was part of the family rule. And they even said, they're not going to come, but you need to invite them. And I was like, wait a second, this doesn't make sense. They're not going to come, but I need to invite them. But part of one of our dysfunctional family rules growing up was that we need to be seen as good, right? We don't live out our truth. We don't live out what's actually going on. And we don't have adult conversations. I was like, I'm happy to call this family member and explain why they're not coming to this type of party because it was like at a water park or something like that. But I'm not inviting them. And I'm not just going to invite them to pretend that I want them to come when I'm actually not inviting them. But in our family, like face and like being seen in a certain way was very, very important. So there was no chaos that got to happen in public, right? I remember one of my kids throwing rocks and one of my family members was like, "We don't throw rocks." I was like, I was like, they're not throwing rocks at anyone, right? There's like a little grass area and some water. Why can't they throw rocks? Like who made that rule that boys can't throw rocks? Boys are going to throw stuff, right? They're letting energy out. They're doing stuff. And so I let them throw the rocks. But if they were throwing rocks and people saw them, that might be chaotic, right? And they might not think that we have control of them as parents, right? We've all been the mom in Target that our kid is screaming, right? And so if you want to control your image and how people see you, and if that child is screaming and you don't have compassion on them, trying to figure out what's going on with them and being them for them, and you're more worried about what other people in the store are thinking about you, and you're making up all these stories about what type of mom you are, you may have a little bit of the people pleaser tendency in you. I remember as I was unwinding this people pleaser in me and wanting people to see me in a certain light, we would ride with the kids down the boardwalk when we lived by the beach, and we would play loud music, and it'd always go through my head, oh, is my music too loud? Are the kids going too fast? And that we would get a dirty look from an older person running by because they like swerved by them, right? And I would begin to define myself as a mom by that dirty look. And I was like, no. I have children. We're riding our bikes. Nothing is defined right now. I don't care. I don't need to care about what they think about me. If I'm doing a good job, then I don't need to worry myself with their opinion because people are going to have opinions, right? I can't control what they think about me, even if I'm doing my absolute best. So do you teach your children or with your spouse, right? Do they have to act a certain way when your family comes around? Because that's the family rule that they should be like this, right? Is your husband or your wife, are they not able to be their full selves when they're with your family because your family doesn't do that, right? Are you altering who you are and not showing your authentic self in order to be liked or approved of by other people? Part of this also comes into feelings, right? Do you hold back feelings of yourself or your children because those feelings aren't okay to have? That might be a dysfunctional family rule. Like, I'm not allowed to express what's going on. I decided very early in my life that expressing myself was not okay. I had written my parents a letter about something that had happened, and I got in trouble for that letter for expressing my side of it. And so very early on, I decided, okay, I'm not allowed to have feelings. I'm not allowed to express them because if I express them, pain is going to happen. So You might say, well, I let my kids express their feelings. Okay, well, what about when they scrape their knee and they're crying or they're upset about something? Is the first thing you go to them and say, oh, it's okay, honey, you're all right, you're fine, it's okay, stop crying. Okay, do you rush their process while they're in an emotion, or do you let them naturally come out of it? So imagine you as an adult being upset about something and your spouse comes over and like, it's okay, you're going to be fine. You don't have to feel like that. It's okay. You can stop. Like, and they pander you, right? Even though like that it's sweet, it's coming from the best intention because you don't want your child to hurt. But are you robbing them and sending the unconscious signal that they're not allowed to have feelings or that they need to change or they can't cry? Sometimes kids need to cry for longer than what we want them to cry, right? But do you stifle that? Do you stop that? Are there emotions in your house that are not okay? Now, I'm not saying kids get to be angry and do whatever they want to do while they're angry. I'm just saying, are they allowed to be angry? Are they allowed to be sad? And do you try and fix it or solve it or take it away from them or have them not feel that when they're feeling it? Do you allow a space for them to move through it on their own? And are they learning coping strategies? Or every time something hard comes up or a challenging emotion comes up, are you trying to take it and remove it from them? So then it's confusing, right? Because as a kid, you don't know what to do with it, right? So I want you to think, what are the unconscious rules that dictate your family? So it's it's a rule. Like so for example, you would finish the sentence, children should what? Right? Children should listen. One of the unconscious rules that I had for a while was children should listen the first time. Right? Some people have said that children are supposed to be seen and not heard. But if you think back to the first one, children should listen the first time. When my kids didn't listen the first time, because what child listens the first time? That automatically meant that they were being disrespectful. But they were just learning boundaries, right? No child is going to listen the first time ever, right? They're going to push. Like it's a child's natural developmental ability to push boundaries and to figure out what they can get away with, and it creates their autonomy, right? But if I have the unconscious rule that children should listen the first time that I say it, it's going to create a lot of stress for me. Because if that means that I'm being disrespected, then they need to be punished, right? So what are your unconscious rules you have for your family? What are your rules around emotions, right? You're allowed to be happy, but if you're not happy, then you're not grateful, right? Or you're allowed to be a little bit wild, but once someone starts crying, then you've gone too far, right? What are the unconscious rules? You know them when you say children should what in school. So like in school, what should children do? Around friends, what should children do? If you're at church, how should children behave? What are the rules that you're governing your family by? Because some of them might be outdated. It could have been things that were modeled to you that you didn't realize you were passing down. Sometimes we say we don't want to be like our parents, but we end up becoming them as time goes on and when we have children. So one of the unconscious rules sometimes is the no talk rule for children. So no talk, like don't talk back to me, right? You don't get to have an opinion. But children need to learn how to work through conflict and need to work through how to have healthy dialogue. So if you have the no talk rule, like, nope, you don't get to say anything. You don't get to defend. You don't get to do this. We're robbing our children of this ability to have adult conversations, right? Do you create a space for them to defend their side or to say what they were thinking? And as a parent, do you allow space for you to be wrong, right? Because sometimes I jump to a conclusion, I punish someone, and I had the story completely wrong. But if we have the no talk rule in my house and they don't get to say anything, or they don't get to, challenge anything, and not challenge authority, but they don't get to like push back a little bit, and I'm not loose knowing that I make mistakes, then I might miss opportunities where I'm punishing and sometimes they don't deserve it, right? And so do you have this unconscious rule that as a parent, you're never wrong, right? Do you ever say, hey, I messed up, can you forgive me? Like, do you model healthy relationships? Because they're gonna mess up, right? Are you teaching them how to come back and reconcile with you and make things right? And the best way to teach that is not by telling them how to do it, but showing it yourself. When you mess up as a parent, Are you coming back in and saying, hey, I dropped the ball here? Or for me, sometimes I really struggle with pain in my body. And so the kids, I've had to say, I need you to listen today. Like, I have a really short fuse. I don't want to get mad at you. I don't want to be frustrated. I don't want to be irritable. And I know that I am because I'm in a lot of pain. So what I need from you guys is this. And then they're like, okay, cool. Like, I'll be on guard a little bit more. I'm a little bit more alert. Sometimes we'll be in the car and Brendan's like, Mom, do you have a headache? Yeah, baby. He's like, I wish you would have just told me that. I'm like, I'm so sorry. Right. But the more that I can communicate and not have to be perfect as a parent, the more insight and more connection I can have with my kids. Because my older one especially, wants to be present to that for me. Right. But if I'm not human and I always have to be perfect and I always have to be, perfect for them, then we're going to miss out on opportunities to connect. And they're going to think that that's how they have to be when they grow up as well. So do you have the no talk rule, no listen rule, and that you're always right rule, and that you have to be perfect? And that really, when you have to be perfect, then nothing can be your fault, right? Like, do you admit fault sometimes as a parent that you made the mistake? So those are just a couple ways that we can maybe unknowingly, unconsciously be passing down dysfunction to our families. The last one is not relying on anybody. So do your kids see you in relationship and in community with other people and relying on people? I saw my parents rely on each other, which was amazing, but then not on that many other people. And they kind of did life alone and kind of did life as a silo. And they didn't trust strangers, right? They didn't give money to homeless people. It was like, don't trust anyone. That was the message that got sent, or at least the message that I articulate, or that my perception of the message, even if they didn't mean to send it, that was my version of the message, right? Are you teaching your children how to build relationships and trust other people? Because if they feel like they have to do it alone, it's going to be a long, lonely road. So a couple things to check in on. I'd love to hear what stood out most to you in that. And if you're not subscribed, definitely subscribe and follow for more great videos.